Assalamu alaikum everyone, Yasmin Mogahed here. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Thank you for joining. This is our second session in a series in which we're covering the themes that I'll be talking about in my upcoming class called Transformed. So I want to give you kind of just like a little bit of an overview, and then we'll go into the topic of today's. So Transformed is a class that I used to provide on site. It's my most comprehensive class that I've been teaching for many years now. And what I cover in this class is I talk about a lot of kind of topics that have to do with how we can start to change our lives, but not like just small changes, but really improve and develop and change the things that we want to see, change in our lives. And so the concept of this class Transformed is that it really basically revolves around this ayah in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim." That indeed Allah does not change the condition of a people until they change what's inside themselves. And so what we learn here is that in fact, change has to happen internally. Change has to begin from inside of ourselves. And then things outside of our lives can change. That's how we're going to be able to change the problems that we have. For example, there is a lot of things in our lives right now that we may not like, that we may want to change. Maybe we have problems with our relationship with others. Maybe we have problems with our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And maybe we have problems with our relationship with ourselves. And that's the actual theme. That's the topic I'm gonna focus on today. The topic of al-wadud and self-love. And what does it mean to love ourselves? And how can we build a stronger relationship with ourselves? This is one of those themes that I do get into more deeply in the course Transformed. The people who've registered for this class have gotten access. So what we do is that as soon as you register for the class, you can register at almaghrib.online. This link, inshallah, will provide almaghrib.online. The thing about registering is that as soon as you register, you get immediate access. A lot of people have asked, because alhamdulillah, we have a global community. Actually, I want you to take a chance before we jump in and tell me where you're logging in from. So we can kind of get a sense of how global this community is, and everybody has their own time zone. So what we've done is that the class is actually accessible to you at your own schedule. So you get immediate access to the class material as soon as you register, and you can watch it at your own pace, and you can, at your own schedule. The other thing is that only the people who register get exclusive access to 4 live Q&As with me. So I did my first one on Wednesday, and anyone who registers will still get a recording of that. But there's 3 more live Q&As coming up, and that's only for the people who register for Transformed as students this term. So, in terms of talking about, this concept of self-love, first of all, what is al-wadud, right? One of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in which we learn that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the root. He is the source, capital S, of all love, of all the love that we give, all the love that we have is all rooted in al-wadud, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But what is the relationship now between that love that we have and we receive from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and that we give to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and our own self-love? First of all, I want to kind of just talk about this concept because I think it's one of those really popular sort of, in this modern day, there's a lot of talk about self-love. What does it mean to have self-love? And I think it's also important to define self-love in a healthy way, because we are a people of extremes, right? I think that it's important to talk about these extremes so that we are aware of them, we beware of them, and we find that middle ground. So I think on one extreme you have this trend, right, of, yes, love yourself. It's all about you. But the problem is we've also, in a sense, moved into a culture of narcissism. And what does that mean? Well, narcissism is a personality disorder in which a person lacks empathy. And this is one of the most striking kind of characteristics of a narcissist. It's a person who basically only sees themselves, who only sees their own needs and their own perspective in any situation. And so somebody who is a narcissist would have difficulty seeing beyond themselves, beyond that self-centered sort of view, and that they would have difficulty taking the perspective of another person. They would have it would be very difficult for them to show empathy for others. It's a very self-absorbed type of disorder, and ironically, it's actually grounded, and this is very important for the topic we're discussing today. It's ironically grounded in insecurity. So oftentimes a person who is actually at the root very, very insecure, they would cover that up, or it would be covered up by this narcissism, by basically putting themselves as basic. They become very needy of praise, needy of admiration, more than just approval. But a narcissist needs to constantly be not just approved of, but admired, almost worshipped, in a sense. And again, there's a total lack of compassion for others and understanding and empathy for others. And so it's a very unhealthy kind of self-focus, right? But then you have, on the other hand, the other extreme, and that's kind of what I want to talk about mostly today, is when a person completely lacks self-love, completely lacks healthy self-compassion. Now, what is self-compassion and what is healthy self-love? Well, a person with healthy self-compassion and self-love will have a healthy self-image, will have a sense of worth for themselves. So without being a narcissist, without believing that you are at the center of the universe, but having value for yourself, believing that you are worthy, believing that you have worth, believing that you are deserving of respect, that you are deserving of love and respect and belonging, that you have self-respect, right? Now, what does that look like practically, right? I think that one of the biggest sort of traps that we fall into, and I've heard this over the years countless times, a lot of us, and I would say especially women, are extremely hard on ourselves. And when I say that we are hard on ourselves, I don't mean that, we push ourselves to be our best in a healthy way. I mean that we beat ourselves up, and it is not healthy. And one of the ways that I think one of the most common ways that we beat ourselves up, as especially as women and generally also men, is that we have a habit which is extremely toxic called negative self-talk. Now, negative self-talk is basically the way in which we speak to ourselves, the way in which we have an inner conversation with our own selves. So, for example, when something happens in our lives, how do we talk to ourselves about it, right? Specifically when it's something negative, when maybe we make a mistake, or we let another person down, or we let ourselves down. We're not at that level of perfection that we might hope. How do you talk to yourself? This is extremely important, because this ends up becoming the foundation of our own relationship with ourselves.